subscribe to Panda? That's so hot. You subscribe to Panda? That's so hot. You subscribe to Panda? That's so hot. You subscribe to Panda? That's so hot.
You said
All right. Hello, everyone. Thanks for hanging out. A very special episode today, since the guest today, I consider him a Twitch unicorn, to be honest, because, like, first of all, he doesn't have a lot of time, but then also, I don't think you've gone on like a lot of shows, and this actually might be your cam virginity gone too, right? You've never been on cam on one of the shows, so we claim that one.
Yeah, I think so.
He's probably the FC I learned the most from. Maybe not only in game, also like on a personal level. Over 10 years, right? We've been flying together for 10 years. We became good friends, I would say. I would even stretch and say sometimes, it felt like it's like a big brother, definitely. And we always talk about the Innit family, you know what I mean? And I think it is very fitting. And yeah, someone I like always looked up to, FC style, very different to my FC style, I think. But I learned a lot, and yeah, and on some areas, I know I'll never be as good as you when it comes to, for example, multi-boxing and all that stuff. That like I was always impressed by it because like running anchor, target calling, the Logi anchor on top of it, then having the Titan bridge to bridge and reinforcements at the same time, and then moving to Sinos somewhere. Like I always like how and why do you do it, right? We always try to like help out and stuff, but you were always in this old school mindset, like, yeah, I'm just doing it myself. It's all good, right? It's like, and it worked out. So that was always, very impressive to me.
No, thank you very much, and thank you for the invite to the show.
Um, so we like good brothers probably do. We also had some fights over the years, right? It wasn't always like easy, you know what I mean? But I think also at the end of the day, it was always like, we always found like a way to get over it fairly quickly too. Where I think where other people would probably have just fucking say, "Oh fuck it." I think we always knew,
Yeah.
like, yeah.
I think we had a fair share of arguments over the years, didn't we? And like, oh my god, like we don't want to do that. We want to do this. Like certain
Exactly.
amounts of drama, but it is like it is. It's funny you say that. Actually, I think for me it has been like a brotherly experience, and I know there's a couple of others who probably say the same. Right? You kind of spend 10 years together playing a game, and trying to get the most out of what you're doing, and trying to have fun, trying to succeed, and you're bound to have some disagreements, some arguments, and sometimes you just want to hit each other, sometimes you want to hug each other.
Yeah, and the reason why I brought that up and right at the start is also because I think that primarily came from whenever we had a little bit of a fight going on, we always like it always came from the different play styles. If you think back, like where did we fight about? For example, SRP. It was always a big thing, right? A big thing, like how like alliance finances and stuff. You were always the grown up in the room, basically, say like, all right, we have to be careful with like spending too much money. We have to be sufficiently like we have like a buffer of ISK, and I was always the guy saying like, no, fuck it, we don't need ISK, we don't need SRP.
Yeah.
People
Spend
want to
it.
fucking people want to just spend all their ISK, and then fucking it's fine to have a little bit of ISK struggle and so on, right? But it's always those little things, right?
Yeah, stuff like that. And sometimes there's differences in approach, or how we want to do things, or objectives, or it happens at lots of different levels, right? And I think it's been interesting over the years. We've had lots of those sorts of challenges, but we've always made our way through them. And you can't. You have to pick your battles too. You can't have everything your own way. You have to sort of accept there's other people who want to take the lead on things and who want to put their own mark on things. And you have to compromise. I think that's been probably one of the big learnings actually of the last decade is compromising at the right time. And I think just the teaming element actually has been a big learning curve, and recognizing you're part of a bigger team, and it's not just a an authoritarian type style thing you're running. So that's been a big learning.
Yeah,
for sure.
So, go on.
Sorry, yeah. No, you go.
No.
I wanted to just say, so like, it's the different styles that kind of like get us there, but then also they complement each other too. That's for example, when I had Shines on, that's like one of the first things I said. Right? It's like good to have a guy that loves this stuff, and good to have a guy that likes like capitals, like Shines, right? Like whenever it's capitals, like I'm just gonna be hands up. I'm like, it's not my thing. I don't even feel comfortable doing it because I never do it, right? So like, why am I even trying if I have Shines? Like, who loves that shit, right? And then you like just to do everything at the same time anyway, right? So you do like a lot of different stuff. And whenever you need to have someone who like helps out with like a little thing here, a little thing there, whatever, right? We have like a lot of people for that. And but it's like the team like that we built over those years. I think that complements really, really well, like complements each other. And,
I think.
yeah.
No, go ahead, Bender.
No, go on.
I was going to say, I think everyone gravitates towards their own style, and sometimes those styles are out of necessity. Maybe someone has to step up and do something because no one else is doing it, or maybe it's timing, but or maybe it's just preferences. I think if I was to try and characterize the styles of yourself, myself, Dark and Bonga, and there's a whole bunch of others, other FCs in the team as well who are doing awesome stuff. I'll probably say, I like to think of myself as a sniper. Clean kills, one shot, get in and get out clean. I think Dark is definitely the hammer. He when he's got it, he wants to drop it, and he doesn't give a shit. He just wants to drop it on whoever he can. I think Bonga's a bit of a flamethrower. It's like indiscriminate violence. Just whatever happens, even if he kills his own guys, it doesn't matter as long as everyone has a good time. It's probably a bit unfair, actually. It's a compliment, actually, Bonga. And I think, Panda, you're like a sort of a tactical pocket nuke. When it goes off, it's just devastating. And then people are like, "Where did that come from? How did that happen? We need to figure out what happened there."
And he's like, he.
Yeah, I mean,
like, I knew what happened. I've been pressing for this for a month. I knew what happened.
I made a YouTube video and everything. Here's the PowerPoint slides explaining it.
That is actually quite a good description, I think, to everyone. And then Bonga, since you brought up Bonga, he's the fourth Strat FC for Innet, for those who are not aware. And he's the only one I didn't have on yet. So, like, I think if I catch him, time zone is a bit of an issue, right? But if I catch him the next, then get the...
You have to do a morning show, like a 7 a.m. morning show. For
yeah.
Oh.
We're just going to make it up like a morning show. But only happy news, right? Not the bad ones.
Yeah.
Like, Eve is better than any time, and CCP is doing all the right things, and everything is perfect. That's maybe something for the future.
Yeah.
But you know what always impressed me about Bonga was he had in Init, he was the weakest time zone just number wise. So you would think he doesn't have all that much to do, but then whenever it came to like getting it done and like big op in his time zone or whatever, he would always he would never be rusty. He would just be on point instantly, right? That's also, you remember when we first talked about him as being like the fourth Strat FC? That was pretty similar to what I just said. Everyone was like, yeah, he didn't do a lot of ops, but does he have the chance to? But every op I saw, pretty on point, right? And yeah, it's always very impressive, I think.
Yeah, I think the hard thing as well is just, he doesn't have the benefit of having a huge support team. It's a smaller team. It's a lot more pressure, a lot more things you're going to do yourself, or not as much air scout coverage, that kind of stuff. So he's done an awesome job.
So, he's kind of like come up through Init, and there's a lot of people that do, they start FCing and they kind of try to hone and develop their skills through the initiative, through practicing their FC stuff with Pando and with you, Bliss. So, like, what do you think's the hardest aspect of FCing?
That's a difficult question. I can only say for myself, and this is probably a reflection of me, is probably one of the hard things I find nowadays is it's very easy to get lazy. It's very easy to kind of look out there and go, I'm not going to get a good fight out of this, or the chance of getting some content are kind of slim. I'm not going to bother taking a fleet out because of whatever reason. And sometimes that's a factor of time. You've got to choose how you use your time. But a lot of the time, if you make the commitment to go out and create something, even if it's a 5% chance of getting something done or finding some content, there's always stuff that happens, or you can maybe even have a small influence on things which happen. Maybe it's impossible odds, and the enemy FC makes a mistake, and you capitalize on it, get a couple of kills. For me, it's I think it's just maintaining the energy and the drive to go out, even when the conditions don't really look favorable, and you kind of think, it's going to be a waste of time. It's very easy not to form up and do anything. You kind of have to really push yourself and go, well, maybe I can do something. Maybe I can make a chance. Maybe I can just entertain people for an hour or two. That's that's probably what I found the hardest, is just maintaining that energy. It gets a bit, you get a bit, you can get a bit complacent and kind of, just log in for the content when the content comes. But, that's often the best content isn't on the set pieces. Often the best content is, circumstantial, when, an enemy fleet's out doing something and someone spots it, and, you manage to, spin up a fleet and intercept them before, you have the whole of the game ready on both sides, and nobody wants to fight because no one wants to lose anything. But that requires a time commitment. I think you need to be not necessarily sitting around, but flexible enough to react quickly. So I think for me, that's probably the part I find the hardest as time goes by, is just maintaining the commitment to just to undock and do stuff when there's not much going on, and actually go and create something rather than rely on the timers, so to speak, or rely on set pieces.
Yeah, like one thing I always say is like good things only happen to those who undock, right? If you're docked, there's a very tiny chance anything cool is gonna happen that day. It really is, right? So when you're already undocked and formed, possibilities are there, right? You can like sometimes just good stuff happens. So I mean, sometimes you wipe a fleet by accident too. Whatever. Right?
Yeah.
We've been there.
Yeah.
We've been there.
And sometimes stuff happens to you, right? And I remember, when you and the rest of the team spearheaded the whole rage eviction. I can't remember, the rationale. At some point in one of those days when we were in the wormhole, I was I was running one of the snatch fleets, and as you know, I barely run them, right? I mean,
I was so
Panda,
worried. I was
you
so
nailed it, right?
worried.
You so nailed it. I thought, no, I didn't need to do the snatch content. Panda's got that down. I'll just let him get on with it. And then the one day, like I'm missing, I've got the snatch fleet.
Stuka's
like,
actually
okay,
at this time. Yeah.
That's Stuka, exactly. Yeah, Stuka, beg your pardon. And like the breakout happens, and I'm there thinking, holy shit! Like I've literally flown this fleet once before. I kind of mentally I know what to do, but I'm not well practiced. And all I got in my head is, Jesus, if I fuck this up, Panda's going to kill me. He's going to kill me. He's probably going, give me the FC controls. Give me the...
Dude, I was so worried, right? I was like literally... So for those who wonder what fight we're talking about, so they just broke in with like a bunch of dudes hours before, right? And then like, I think 2 hours later, 3 hours later, there would have been the armor timer. So they form and we have to counterform. But the situation for us was we didn't have a citadel. So I was stuck in I think I was stuck in a monitor. I don't know what it was. But it wasn't really the right thing to FC Stukas from. And Stukas were like the biggest fleet we could form. And then we had a couple Ravens. And then you're like, I can take the Stukas. I'm like, okay, all right. So he's confident enough to take it because it's not an easy concept if you fly it the first time or the second time in your case, right? I was like, okay, all right, let's do it, right? And I formed the Raven that was just like, oh my god, like let's fucking get this done. And I know, like Ari, she was so nervous because like it was kind of her baby, this whole thing, right? She put in so much work, and then she actually said like, hey, don't you want to take the I'm like, no, let's fucking do this. It's gonna be okay, right? I was so worried that you would just like warp in and then hope for the best and then wipe the fleet, but
trust me, I felt the pressure big time. I was like, okay. and then the hardest thing, right, is if you're not familiar with that fleet concept, I mean, you can be familiar with it conceptually, but it's really, I find it quite challenging because it's quite a different style. You have to really slow everything down because everyone's an afterburner. Everyone's really slow on anchor. It's not the same sort of style of fleet that I would be normally familiar with. So, yeah, the pressure was immense. And I was thinking, oh my god, don't screw this up. Like Panda will kill you. The team that put in all the effort, like a year's effort for this, they're just going to kill me. So I was like, okay, just do your best and don't fuck this up.
And then the whole wormhole aspect of it, right? Like if you fuck up, that's it. Like you can't just reship. Like that's old school stuff, right? Like, all right, you died, fuck it, reship, guys. Let's have another run at it. We learned from the lesson. And so, nope. You have that one chance, right? And then they fucked up, actually. Not us. They fucked up, warped right into your bomb range, and you were aggressive enough, which is, when you fly Stukas the first time, I think when you actually did fly it the first time, I remember you were too careful. I was like, okay, you could engage here and bomb them, but you were like, oh, there's another timer coming up. If I fuck up now, we're going to lose the second time. I was like, yeah, well, I guess it's a fair call to make. So I was worried you would not engage, really. But you were aggressive in that moment. So
yeah, I remember that first fight. I didn't want to engage because I wasn't familiar with it enough to kind of know the dynamics of how much can you get away with, how much punishment can you take and still pull off a win. So it worked out okay in the end.
Yeah, like the first time I was running Stukas, I wiped the fleet. So you have a better Stuka track record than me, probably, right? I think the first
two fights,
3-4
one
times.
win, one no engagements.
Yeah, I always like whenever we talk about that, I always like to point that out. That people, when I first ran Stuka fleets and engaged Munin fleets with it, there was a couple people that kept telling me like, you're fucking dumb for engaging those mutants. Everyone knows bombers versus mutants. Like, what are you doing? Like, why are we doing this? We're whipping bombers. Like, dudes, we got so close though. We got so close. Now think about it. Just imagine. That's what I always said to my guys. Just imagine we catch them actually. Like, that's an entire mutant fleet there. And they want to see it. And then we started catching them, right? And then it was like, wait, Stukas are so OP. Like, what the fuck? Right? It's like, dudes, it's not that OP. You can like handle it with mutants. You just have to do it right. But yeah.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. I mean, you made a great success of those. I mean, everyone's seen that throughout the game. I mean, obviously the changes have impacted those quite a bit. Obviously, the changes now as well. Some of them with formations make that kind of thing a bit harder too. But we'll see.
Yeah.
So do you like the fleet formation change then, Bliss?
Yeah, I think it'll be interesting. I mean, I'm not entirely sure. I know I've seen some conversations so far where people are highlighting some, I wouldn't say exploits, but unintended consequences of using it. And I haven't had enough time to play with it, to be honest with you, as much as would like yet. I think it'll definitely give some more interesting dynamics. I think. I don't think it's overpowered though yet. I think if you could create your own custom formations, you could do some really awesome stuff. But I think the relative formation, because you have to pre-set up manually, probably limits the ability to do too many crazy things too quickly. Like you can probably pull off some amazing set pieces if you're prepped and if you're patient enough. But no, I think it's a good thing. I think it's a good change. It's funny actually. I remember, and that must have been over 10 years ago. Formations being a conversation that people were saying, hey, wouldn't it be great if we had formations? And it's funny now, I mean, not even having seen any conversation about it for a decade, and suddenly it pops up, you think, oh wow, so interesting.
And it's thanks to like certain devs, like shout out to Rise and Signal and their teams. They actually think about these things, and they in the last year, I think most of the changes these guys brought out were pretty much on point. It was always a net positive. Like you can always argue like how good or like whatever, but in general, overall, it was always a good change. And it had like, for example, the filaments and the formations now, like really good examples. There's like a couple devs that really put in some thought, and they're not worried about like picking up an old idea and say like, yeah, actually, we should make that happen, and then make it happen in the right way. I think it's important too, because I don't think it's like, so some people are worried about line members not having enough to do. You know what I mean? Like, oh yeah, that gives more power to the FC. I'm like, it's just a warp after all, right? Like, line members never did the fleet warps anyway, so it's like it adds more skill potential to the FC, but it doesn't take away from line members really. So
no, I don't think so.
Yeah,
they weren't doing fleet warps, and they're not warping themselves hardly ever anyway.
Yeah, I mean, you probably, like, I'm not sure if I've put that actually in the strat channel or if I just have thrown that to shines all the time. But like, I've got some good ideas for bomb runs and all that stuff. And we've actually been practicing those that one time just to see the theory if it works out, and it does, right? So I think there's going to be some good stuff coming. But yeah, at the moment we are doing other things, and we have to finish our little project in Pass. So the bomb runs are going to come in at a later time.
I'm sure it'll be worth the wait.
So how do you feel? How do you feel about like with scarcity, and especially with the fact that the scarcity was implemented like pretty much right when we went to war?
It's hard to feel the impact of it, really. I mean, I don't think it's impacted. It's probably impacted a lot of people, at some level, but it hasn't. I haven't seen it impacting things too much for us, even at a macro level. I'm sure individual pilots, probably has impacted ability to make money and that kind of thing. But it just so happened at the time we were already, honest, just way too busy. We've been kind of at war for a reasonably long time, even before the current war that's happened. We were kind of engaged with, I guess, the multi-front war up north. Pure blind, everything that was going on around there. Low sec, cloud ring. So, it definitely probably has that impact. I don't think it's impacted us too much. I think it's interesting. It doesn't appear to have impacted prices of things too much either. You can probably prove me wrong on this. I'm sure someone will whip out a graph and show the price of an Onyx and say, well, it's gone up by 100 million or whatever. But I don't think it's had a dramatic impact to the extent that alliances couldn't function or anything like that. I think for me, probably the one thing which I remember, this is going to sort of a wider conversation, but I think the scarcity thing is probably a good idea conceptually, but I would have wished that they would have not just applied it uniformly across the map, rather than make everything poor and scarce. They should have made some areas more scarce than others, and I think people have been talking about that for probably the last 10 years about Eve went from being enough resources for anybody that no one needed to fight to no resources for anybody.
Yeah.
Well, people are just fighting. No one's fighting for the resources. People are just fighting for the sake of fighting. No one's fighting because of scarcity.
Yeah.
I think that's where it needs to evolve a bit further.
I think that's the weirdest part about it. So what they like to say is scarcity breeds war. But I always sit there thinking, well, does it though? Like, if everyone's poor, like, what are you gonna steal from the other guy? I don't start a war to steal nothing from the other guy, right?
Yeah, and being poor, like everyone always says, don't fly ships you can't afford to replace. So if everyone's poor and the resources are so scarce, all it does is just make people not want to lose their own ships because they can't replace them.
Yeah, very much. Yeah. So like, scarcity itself doesn't breed war at all, right? It's like, yeah, if you have scarcity in some area and your neighbor has like abundance of that might breed war, right? That's a different story. But to have just scarcity across the board, like, that doesn't make any sense to me. So yeah,
I mean, I think when they announced it, right, they said it was going to be part one of a multi-step, piece of work to do things. So you have to hopefully have faith that they're going to continue doing that and continue evolving it, and maybe we will have that imbalance that creates that conflict and the drive to invade somewhere rather than do nothing, or, as is the case today, do everything. Who knows?
Yeah, like, I know you like to fly like heavier doctrines, like battleships, right? We all miss battleships and stuff. And I think now with those changes, and especially with the changes coming, we should talk about the what's it called again? I forgot actually.
Is it the new funky
target spectrum breaker?
Yeah, has it got a new name now, or is it a new mod, or is it a change?
So it's the old map, but but it's getting changed, right? But so what I wanted to say is the meta actually, if you look at the stats, if you look at damage application and all that stuff, battleships are actually in a decent place against hacks, but because of scarcity, the price tag is quite high. It really is. Like a Domi, I think. Someone can probably check it quickly in Jada and put it in chat. But I think a Domi is around 280 or so. 280 mil for a Domi. Like, so price-wise, yes, you can insure it, and you probably can get holy shit, AS. Like, what the fuck? You probably can
every stream. He gifts every freaking stream.
Yeah. But what I wanted to say before I got distracted, you probably can get away with it, like, price-wise, if you insure it, right? It probably still kind of works.
Is the price that big a change? I mean, what were the battleship prices before? Weren't they like around 240, 220, something like that?
I think Domis were like 180 before that really picked up. And now they're 280, and it's going up still, right? So it probably ends up at like over 300, which is just price tag-wise, it just pushes it too far in that direction, in my opinion, anyway. So if the price tag wasn't there, the meta would be a different one, I think, right now. Right? People would switch to battleships, probably more, not entirely, right, but more. And
I think, I think we're on the edge of them being more usable. I don't think they're quite there yet for being as effective as they should be. I know that's a these conversations are almost spiritual, right? Everyone's got an opinion. People get hugely upset about their view of what things should be, and that's all it is, right? Everyone's got their own subjective view. I mean, for me, I think the changes do, the combination of the hack changes, maybe this module change, fleet warping, you have mechanisms stop getting yourself bombed to oblivion. But for me, I still think the mass hack doctrine is still too powerful in the sense that it's way too mobile, it's way too impactful, and you can run away very quickly, very easily. And I think battleships are still very slow and heavy, very slow to move around. So yes, they're probably going to perform better, and certainly when you've got triage support. But I don't think they're quite at the point where they need to be yet. I think I'd like to see them hitting a bit harder, so that there's a bit of a distinction between the roles. But maybe that'll come to. I can see what CCP are doing there. They're doing it bit by bit rather than wanting to, seesaw another way and then find that everyone only flies, I don't know, maelstroms for the next 5 years.
So whenever we talk about the hack meta and how to actually fix it, I always bring up the idea I had, and I've never done the numbers entirely on it, but I always thought, why not remove some mass from ship hulls and put them back on the guns? So long-range guns have more mass than short-range guns, and then suddenly an R-team unit is slower than an autocannon unit, for example, right? So now there's a trade-off to fitting long-range guns, because that's what it is, right? Long-range hacks just have so much range, plus the speed, plus the warp speed, plus ADC, plus like all these good things, right? So, I always snowed on LFCs that I have on just to see if they would like to see a more drastic change overall. I mean, it impacts all ships basically.
Yeah, I mean, I think on the surface that sounds like a good idea, and I'm sure that I'm sure there's probably a dozen other good ideas that lots of other people have had. I think for me, and I always like to try and I think everyone's got ideas, right? And if you ask me for what my game design ideas are, I'd probably throw out loads of bizarre stuff that some of which you might think was garbage, other things you might think.
I want to hear them, dude. I want to hear them.
Well, I don't know. Now I put myself in the spot now, but I think for me, what I wish these people would do a bit more of is actually before they think about what the design change is, think more of what the design goal is. And I remember, I don't know how many years ago this was now. Maybe it's 5 years ago. They were doing the cap rebalance, and I was fortunate enough to be on the panel. I mean, if I'm honest, not that I made much impact because it was already predetermined what they would be doing. So, I think myself and Nick at the time were kind of trying to make an argument to say, before you define what all the the mass and the modules are, have you actually defined what the role of the ship is going to be? And no one could answer the question. And I was kind of there just going, I don't get why people don't get this. Like, why don't you think about what the role is, and then you can come up with all the ideas? But people are like, no, we don't need to do that. Okay, the mass is going to be 32,000 or whatever, and the plate's going to be, you can put two of them. I'm just thinking that's kind of a bit the wrong way to do it. Think about what the role, and there all could be multiple roles, and then you can throw all the amazing ideas that people have and make it work, right? And I think today I'd like to see more of that, thinking about the roles that ships could play rather than just the pulling of the levers and then nothing ever works because it feels like the roles aren't thought through very clearly.
Yeah, I think that especially capitals are a good example for that, where they kind of had suddenly too much of a role in every fight, right? Carriers could suddenly apply on anything, anywhere. Like the range is just insane. And like faxes, obviously, you heard me rant about faxes for years too, so I'm gonna spare you with that one. But I think Capital Focus Group is what it was, right?
I should probably add, just because I saw a comment. I think I didn't want to sound critical, but that comment was from like 5 years ago on that particular panel. I'm sure things have evolved since then, and the team is looking at roles and so on. But I was just reflecting on something like, which I think people do too often, is they come up with a solution without thinking about what are they actually trying, what's the design goal they're trying to change, rather than is that solution even going to make a difference? Or is it just a cool solution? It could be a cool solution that has no bearing on the role, which is also fine.
Yep.
So what about the ECM burst changes?
Oh yeah, no, wait a second. Wait a second. We did talk about the spectrum breaker. Like,
yeah.
Did you look at it? And do you know what it actually does?
So is this going to be mid slot? Yeah, that changes the sig radius and then gives you a sig radius boost, or like a negative sig radius boost.
So let me explain. I'm not sure if I'm going to be 100% on the money in terms of like what it's going to be, but that's how I understood it. It's going to be the normal target spectrum breaker. And we used that, you remember, in what was the battleship doctrine called again? I forgot. Froggers, right? When the
Yeah,
first
there's loads of those.
ever MJD was introduced, we jumped on it and we made like a battleship document with all kinds of battleships, so everyone could choose, right? Everyone had like their own little niche thing, and there could be like a snowflake and stuff. So
It's glorious chaos.
yeah, it was fun. It was just a fun thing to do.
Yeah.
But so it still breaks this the lock and all that stuff, but then also it gives you a passive minus 10% signature. And when you activate it, it's similar to an ADC, to be honest. Then you have only 30% of your signature left. So it's a multiplier.
Are they keeping the lock break a bit as well?
Yeah.
Or they're dropping that and just changing it to the sig radius?
Both.
Oh,
they do both. Which is interesting, because if you think about it, if you hit that thing and you broadcast for reps, well, your logis are going to lock you slower too now, right? So it almost forces you to bring battleships with a fax, because the fax doesn't care about the lock breaker, really. So, you know.
Well, yeah. I think every change is interesting, right? I think you can only really discover what the impact is when you fly it, because that's only really when you figure out the dynamics of how does it work at small, medium, large scale, and is it even worth using, or is the trade-off useless? I think we'll only find out once we mess around with it and see what's it like in practice. My only concern would be is it's mid-slot, isn't it? So so you kind of, it favors an armor config. But again, is it going to have that material impact if you are flying, say, Moon Fleet versus, I don't know, whatever that
against Hex?
Is it going to make a difference? No, maybe not.
So,
I don't know. We have to try it.
So the numbers I ran, and people I think there was already a post on Reddit about the Typhoon fleet, which is the battleship with the lowest signature. If you pimp that out to absolute minimum signature, which is fairly small for a battleship, I think it's 180 without any. So then the 10% bonus, you land out like, I don't know, 160, something around that. And then you only have 30% of that signature when you activate it. So you end up with like a signature of 50, around about a 50, right? Which is for a battleship tiny. Which now feels to me, it's not for battleships to fight Hex, it's for battleships to fight caps, really, right? Mm-hmm. If the cap fleet targets you, you hit that thing, they're not going to hit you all that well with a 50 signature. Which is like tiny. It's like it's the size of a bomber, really, right? So maybe now battleships can fight Hex because of application with their signature, and they can fight caps, and they actually become battleships, like a ship that you bring to a battle, right? So I hope, at least.
Yeah, I think it's got. I think it's definitely got scope for shaking things up. I think we have to just try it, right? And probably die horribly a few times and then figure out the limitations.
and everyone knows, like, in it, we're known to try or like whatever, right? That's what I always liked about like our approach anyway. Like, if I come up with some crazy shit, nobody ever said like, no, you can't do this, right? Like, yeah, wipe a fleet and see, right? I mean, what the fuck? It's just
that's true.
Spaceships after all. I mean, yeah. I mean, for example, actually, I saw. What stream was it actually? It was someone on Talking Stations. Was it Headliner? I think it was the stream with Headliner and your old friend Shadu. He was on there, and they talked about Init.
What is this recently?
Firewalls. No, it's not super old. It's actually maybe a year old or so.
Ah, okay, cool.
Yeah, Shadu came back just to talk.
Shadu for ages.
Yeah. And so they were talking about the Init, like firewalls and stuff, because like we came up with that as a counter for Drakes. I don't even know who exactly came up with that. Was it you? Who was it?
Yeah, I came up with that one. Sadly, had a limited lifespan, but it was a lot of fun.
Well, yeah, I mean, so the thing is, right? So we came up with that one, and it kind of worked. But it had some issues too, right? So they had to be worked out. And that's just what it is when you're the pioneers in a certain area. Like, yeah, you're going to have to work out those little things and like figure out how it actually is best to apply and stuff. And at the time, like, I think we had the smart bombs all spread out over the fleet, which wasn't the most effective way of doing it. But yeah, that's like, and then they made fun of that part, which is like, they claimed like, oh, we did a firewall too, but like after them, but we did it better. Like, yeah, everyone learned from our lessons, right? things,
I
which
think
I
the
thought
best
was
thing about
funny.
that was that video that someone made with the happy hardcore music to it was just like
Yeah,
it's an all-time classic.
yeah.
But no, I think we did go on and use that a couple more times. I remember we had some epic fight against was it Darkness of Despair and Stainwagon.
Oh yes.
That sort of 340 ham tengus, and it was a case of, if we take, I remember having the debate. I think it was with you and Dark at the time, going, do you know what? If we commit to this fight, we're either going to win or we're all going to die, because we're so outnumbered. We're just going to be a hard tackle. We're going to be sitting there, not moving, and just all dying. Like I think we had a couple of indicators, and then like a whole Tempest Fleet, Issue Fleet, and the firewall running. And yeah, it was amazing. We came out winning, but you don't get. I think you don't get to try. You don't get to fly. What I say, kind of novel concepts that often, because you've got no one to fly it against, right? Often these days, people are flying certain doctrines. You can't. There's not that many inventive things you can do, but you have them up your sleeve for possible
So,
opportunities.
what's your favorite doctrine?
Your favorite all-time doctrine?
It would probably have Carolyn, right? I mean, I think one of the favorite stuff I flew was probably the. It wasn't necessarily even sexy. It was the old kind of the stuff that we cut our teeth on in curse times. That sort of
The Nagas?
the skirmish stuff, whether it was Nagas, Drake Tempest, or Drake Mac. Just the we were kind of really sharpening our edge then. For me, it was just that fast skirmish stuff where you could dictate control and have a variety of different roles for people in the fleets. Everyone had something they had to do. Whether it was the anti-tackle person, or whether it was the webbers, the painters. Everything was very finely drilled, and I think that's for me that's I wouldn't. I mean, it's kind of it's not a particularly special fleet concept or fleet config, but probably the ones I look back to with fondness, because it was probably certainly when I was FCing a lot more than I am today, and when when we did some amazing stuff and had some amazing wins, and we still have amazing wins today, but with different types of configs. Really, it's hard to pick a favorite, isn't it? I mean, there's so many awesome things, so many weird and wacky things we've flown, some of which should never have flown, and somehow one fights, God knows how, but
Yeah, it's true. I
a lot
mean,
of stuff.
we've done a lot of like different things that we only flown like a handful of times and then figured out, okay, like it does work on paper maybe, right? But it doesn't, like, it's not as effective as we were hoping for. And then we're not afraid to just ditch it and say, okay, on to the next one, right? There was a couple of those too. And I know I've fucked up a couple of, like, for example, the Evo Ishtars, like heavy Evo, and then a completely new concept of how to spread the Evo and stuff. And I was aware that it's going to be complicated and all that stuff, but I thought, okay, we're going to figure this out, and at some point people are gonna get really good with it, and I still believe they would probably get good with it. But at the same time, the level of training it takes to get to that level, you'll always swim against the fucking current. You know what I mean? There's gonna be new people coming in. They join a fleet like that, and they're like, what's even going on? Why I have to tag? Like, how do I tag? And what tag do I use? And like, where do I kill? Like, it's just too much for some people, then, right? And then the concept falls apart. It's like one example, I guess.
You have to keep driving this stuff, right? I mean, you know that 60% of the fleet is always the same people anyway, by and large. So if you've got a concept, I know you have done anyway in the past, that you just got to keep doing it, and you either prove it in the end, or you kind of go, okay, it didn't work, and you learn something from it. Sometimes you go, I should have known that, and I didn't have to whelp so many times. But hey, try it. That's how. In fact, that's how you come up with interesting stuff, right? If you didn't try new things, risk new things, or even try something someone's done before and go, well, maybe I can make it work. Maybe they didn't make it work for the following reasons. You can maybe come up with a new thing, right? Or a new flavor of something, or a new derivative.
Yeah.
So what's the favorite thing that you've done with Pando? In game or out of game? Give me your best Pando memory.
I do know it's hard to pick a single one, because we've been flying together for it must be over 10 years now, right?
Okay,
and
give me
10 years,
two then, because I could listen to these stories forever.
I don't. I mean, if I'm honest, I can't think of a specific story necessarily. But I think for me, the funnest times have been, when we've all been hanging out together on a campaign and we've all had the time just to be chilling in the evening doing stuff and either theory crafting or doing something, and then suddenly something kicks off and we're all together, just like a well-oiled machine, everyone doing stuff together, all aligned with the same goal, and you pull off some incredible win that you should never have won. You know, you had a 1% chance of winning, and you somehow pull it off, frustrate the enemy, and you come home and you go, you know what? No one else would have taken that fight. We took it. We probably should have lost, but somehow we won, and it was for all these reasons that everyone's did an amazing job. And that's kind of it's hard to pick one specific example because there's just kind of so many. And you kind of look back over 10 years and you go, well, which campaign was it? Which campaign was it? Was it Stain? Was it Syndicate? Was it Catch? You know, the Catch version 1. Was it Pure Blind? You know, was
Catch
it
1, 2, or 3? Right?
God knows, right? You know, I can't even remember half the time. Out of game stuff. I mean, Panda, you were pretty well behaved at the Alliance meetup. And Brian, yeah,
that was the best time ever. I have to say. That's my number one.
You didn't get naked. You didn't run into the sea naked, or causing you didn't get arrested.
That makes me feel like he did, though. Like when you say.
Maybe I did. I don't know.
Yeah.
What happens in Brighton stays in Brighton, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was the best time ever. Like going to Brighton and then meeting you and the other guys, and then also that you arranged that we had like that little room in the bar upstairs, and I went upstairs, and like you usually do, like you go to a bar, there's a lot of faces you don't know. It's like, yeah, it's like normal, but in that case, it hit me. It's like, well, all these guys, they're all already my friends. You know what I mean? Like I already know all these guys in the room. But I didn't know who is who. It was such a fun experience to just go who the fuck are you? Like, oh, I know that voice. It was just so good, such a good time. Best time ever.
I think I don't know who's organising the next one, but I think there's been a few. I've seen a few volunteers actually. Someone, can't remember who now. Someone volunteered to do one in Denmark when the something lifts.
Yeah, and so we had always, Mama Cool from Prost. He always says like, "Hey, I've got this place in Switzerland." Wait, is he going
to ski resort? And we're like, "Yes, we're coming skiing."
Yeah, exactly. And I know you're into ski. The thing is, he says like, "Hey, I've got this resort like in the Alps and all that stuff. Like, if you want, you can come up in summer because obviously he has to fucking run his place in winter. It's like packed, right?" So skiing wouldn't necessarily be the option there, but he always offered. He said like, "Hey, I
need to PM him right away and say, right, as soon as this COVID stuff's over, we should all go." That'd be fine.
It'll be fine. I mean, it probably would be fine, but yeah.
Since we're like talking about memories and walking down memory lane.
I was saying, Ryan, just before you change, I think that the hardest thing, like we organized this, what do you even call it? Like a treasure hunt.
Yeah, the treasure hunt.
Scavenger hunt.
Yeah,
that was so funny.
We organized this treasure hunt where we had this kind of like Eve Maps route of Brighton where people had to go around and do specific tasks. And when we came up with it, I thought, oh, this would be a fun thing for everyone to do. And then like at the end of the day, people were like, holy shit, like I've been walking I've walked like 15 miles.
Like, I remember people saying that. They're like, what the fuck?
All right, okay, just calm it down next time.
Yeah, the thing was, I think you underestimated that every team is going to be competitive with this. And, in hindsight, I should have been like, as an FC, I should have probably said like, all right, guys, yeah, you go do this. And for the guys who don't feel like walking across the entire city 3 times, you can just we're going to be at this bar here, right? Just drop in and look, whatever. That would have been better for a lot of people, but everyone just fucking marched through, right? Everyone's like, nope. So
there were a couple which were like, hey, we're just going to we're just going to hit this bar and we'll sign our out later.
Yeah.
But sorry, man, you were going to ask. You were going to chip in with a question or something.
No, you're fine. What were you going to say, Pando?
No, I already forgot.
Okay. I was just gonna ask because, we're talking about memories and stuff. Like, do you remember, one of the first times that you kind of helped Pando FC, or one of the first times that back when he started FCing? What were your interactions like when he was baby Pando and Eve?
Yeah, I think Baby Panda was like, he used to fly. Baby Panda used to hang out with this guy called Hunabine. And do you remember Hunabine Panda?
Yeah, he used to be the what did they call it? It's a German corp after all. They had like titles and stuff before I became CEO. So he was the PvP director, I believe.
I'm pretty sure
would
you
do
flew.
roam sword.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure you used to be like flying a crow in those days. But
Yeah, I did.
yeah, like a fast roaming crow. Like I can't remember now exactly, but I don't. I don't think you never came to me asking for help or anything. You just got on with and did your own stuff and learned your own thing. I think the overriding memory, and I can't remember specifically what type of conflict it was, but you kind of started out with these small sort of 5 or 6 man, small kind of gangs, and they were all kind of like as you would expect, right? Knowing you now, looking back, they were all kind of weird. It was like, wait, what? He's like taking out like remote rep ibises? Like what the fuck? How the fuck's he even gonna work? And
Anno
then
hates remote rep doctrines.
yeah. And he'd come back and he'd be like, "Look what we've done!" And like, oh, "Wow, holy shit!" And then, so whatever it was, you were doing all these little, these hugely creative, inventive things. I can't even remember what the doctrines were at the time, but that, probably my macro memory is of you doing those sorts of things, saying, "Hey guys, I'm looking for 10 people. We're going out in whatever," and it was usually something completely different to what the rest of us were flying. I remember coming on some of those. It was a whole heap of fun. And I think you created your own niche of doing different stuff, which was hugely creative, hugely fun for everyone doing it, and you made it a great experience for people. You did all the hard work of all the prep, the scouting, and you took on stuff which probably you had a 1% chance of winning, but on the times you did win, everyone came home like Olympians. Right? People were like they'd won the Olympics. Like, holy shit! Like,
you know what?
That
doctrine, I know exactly. We call it Foco healers, right? It's like the mullet. It's I still fly this because it still works pretty good. Like it's the best doctrine I ever came up with, I think, because it just gets you every fight you want. Like someone's in space, he wants to fight you. He does, right? Because he just soul freaks and you remote rep. It doesn't look like anything. And that's like back, I don't know, 10 years ago, literally, we were flying these. We still fly them to this day. Obviously, we added on stuff, right? But yeah. But like, so you say like, you go out and like take fights, like we shouldn't win or whatever. Do you remember F7C? And I had to think of that fight as an example when you said like, yeah, when like the team got together and like a well-oiled machine, and then sometimes you just have to undock and see what happens, right? And that's one of those examples. F7C, first of all, it was about an R64. It wasn't that crazy of a, like, we shouldn't go in and like sacrifice everything to get this. Like the R64 was nice to have, but like it wasn't like life or death. But what we did, like, and I was surprised at the time, we were outnumbered, plus NC was on the way. And then we undocked anyway, and the first plan, actually, remember, was to just drag NC all the way over there and then blue ball these guys, right? Because we couldn't afford this. It was just too much. But by the time NC arrived, we killed so much shit that we're like, now we can actually take this fight. And then we stayed in the fight. That was actually, it was a ridiculously good fight. And Shank's Titan died.
Yeah, but it was, that was when we did the blow build, the 4 Titan blunderbuss maneuver, wasn't it? I mean, sometimes stuff happens like that, right? You kind of think, oh, we could never win this, and you start thinking, actually, look at how things are unfolding, and things start going your way a little bit. You think, actually, they're making a few mistakes here. If we do this right, if we do it quickly, we can maybe pull off a bit of an upset. I mean, it was an awesome fight. I think the objective was irrelevant. I think we just said, right, we can do this. Even if we have 1 or 2 Titans, we're probably still going to be ISK even. And I think we came out ISK even by losing the Titan. But yeah, it was awesome. And I think it didn't work perfectly. I think it was just chaos, right? There was just so many hostiles there that we couldn't control things in the end. In the end, we died in the fire, but we took some of that stuff down. It was just immense.
The escort was almost even, and we lost the Titan. So, I mean, that kind of tells you, right? And I think the POS died. I'm not actually sure. But that's also like the objective. I think sometimes people lose track of what actually the objective is. On an R64, it might just be the R64. But a lot of times the objective is also to have a strong showing, to actually show these guys like what's up. That might just be the objective actually. Or like Melcanis like to say to that one guy, or like, what's the forum again? That old
Was it
forum.
the Kugu?
Kugu Tsumen. Yeah, so
Yeah.
he, on Kugu, like that one dude, haha, but you lost the objective. And then he links the battle bot and say like, haha,
What was it?
you were the objective, right? Like, so it's very true sometimes. It's just not as obvious, like it's just not as clear what the objective is. Sometimes you just gotta kill some shit. That's the objective.
I think we don't know half the time, right? I think it's just whatever feels good.
Exactly. Whatever feels right, that's the objective. And then like people can then take that at the end. If you then say like, well, that was the objective actually for us. So then people take that and say like, well, let's spin. Right? Like, no, it's not.
Write your own narrative.
Yeah.
So how have your styles of FCing changed throughout the time that you've been playing Eve for the 100 years?
Did it change? Didn't change that much, did it?
I don't think our individual styles have actually changed in and of themselves necessarily. I think what changes and what continues to change is just the dynamics and the attributes around you. So, for myself, I always enjoyed flying. Probably two styles actually. One, and I'm ancient, so when I started playing the game, it was all back in the day of sniper battleships. Sniper battleship fleets were how you took fights, right? I mean, you didn't. I can't even remember if you had probing back then. I don't think you necessarily did. So you had to have.
You had to triangle.
You had to give interceptors giving you warp in. I think even before then, like way back when, you had to have interceptors giving.
There was no probing at all.
Yeah, no probing at all. So you had to have scepters kind of flying around grid, giving you warp ins or loads of bookmarks. And back then it was long range battleships. You'd have one battleship fleet fighting another one at 150k range, just kind of hitting each other, and dictors going and bubbling, and lots of repositioning, and that kind of then downscaled into the sort of mid-tier fleet style. But then also upfront close range brawls, also a ton of fun. I think for me, I don't think my style's necessarily changed all that much. I think I've done lots of different things. Some things I haven't touched at all, mainly not necessarily because they're not interesting, but just because there's always someone doing it and doing it way better than I can. Like, Panda, when you're doing running Stukas, like, and it doesn't need another Stuka pilot, Stuka FC. Why does it need another Stuka FC? And you have to choose your time, right? As well, you can't do everything. So for me, I think it's always been more of an evolution of style, and also just continually adjusting and learning and making changes in the face of what's around you. So either the dynamics that CCP changes, the things which either make what you've done before more successful or less successful, and also what hostiles fly. Sometimes hostiles are only flying one thing, and you go, well, out of my toolbox, I'll choose one or two of these things, and a lot of the stuff you would love to fly, you don't get the opportunity to, because it doesn't work against the kind of things that hostiles fly. So for me, it's kind of always a case of adapting and evolving, and in some cases, if you take a bit of a break, catching up and brushing the rust off, kind of what I'm doing now, and just trying to incrementally improve.
Yeah,
I don't even know if that answered the question. I'm not sure.
I do believe so, but also I think your overall style, like running, like how you run fleets, it hasn't changed all that much over the years. I think it's still the same like style that you apply to every concept, right? So like always having a scout with you, like and stuff is standard, but like you like run like 3 other things at once, and then you always keep track of a complex situation with like, and then having the discipline to always have scouts on hostiles and all that stuff. That's what I always fuck up. That's one of those lessons I had to learn over the years too. Like, yeah, you should put scouts everywhere. You should ask your guys like, hey, do we have ice here? Do we have ice there? And then always being on point, like, where is that stuff? Sometimes I don't even look up, like I have the ping relay right here and I don't even look at it, you know what I mean? But always being aware of what hostiles are doing.
Yeah. It feels like back in the day, it feels like that stuff. I mean, I think even today it's still relevant, right? But I think it feels less relevant nowadays, probably for a couple of different reasons. One is almost every fleet config that people are generally flying, us included, okay, maybe with the exception of Max these days, even if you get in a situation which you didn't want to be in, you can power your way out of it and take minimal losses. You could just outrun heavy fire and get out of there. And also, the power projection stuff of days gone by when people could just bring a whole Titan fleet across the map in 5 minutes and drop straight in your head. That was more of a problem because back then people were using heavier, slower doctrines. So, you couldn't. It meant that your, intel and being a bit more disciplined was critical because you suddenly lost the whole fleet because, oh, hey, we're going to go and bash something and no one's around, don't worry about it. And, oh, the whole fleet's dead. Like, how did that happen? That doesn't happen so much these days because power projection is gone and people are generally flying lighter doctrines. Now, maybe that might change, right? Maybe they'll change. And as you said before, people might start flying things which are a bit more difficult to get out of trouble in. And you might start seeing a bit more, less complacency. And I'm not saying that in a bad way, just that you don't generally have to worry too much. Even if you get surprised, you can generally power out of it, unless you get dropped out other side of a gate with like 500 people and loads of heavy tackle. But yeah.
Do you remember when we first joined? What was the first coalition we joined? I forgot. Was the HBC? I forgot.
It was Honey Badger Coalition, wasn't it? HBC.
Yeah.
Remember we kind of went south and we ended up in Stain and who was the other dude? It was Freeze, wasn't it? It was Freeze.
Freeze and Sword.
Running. Yeah.
Sword and Freeze, yeah.
Yeah.
But power projection was kind of the main reason for that, right? Because we couldn't use our tool. We were too big. We were on everyone's radar to a degree, right? Especially like our good friends from BL. They like to they always were looking to catch us riding dirty, with our fucking caps and stuff. We always had to be so aware. They never really caught us clean. Like we lost a cap here, a cap there, It's the cost of doing business, as you always say.
Yeah, that's right.
But that was one of the main reasons why we felt like forced to join a coalition, right? Because whenever we've put like big assets in space, Sino chain goes up, someone's on the way, right? Someone like a bigger fish is on the way, basically. And
I think that I think if I remember that came towards the kind of, it was the kind of fading light of the Curse days. When we first went to Curse, it was post-war, regroup, trim a lot of fat, and within we actually it was really good for us because we went from just not that we were before, but every alliance goes through phases. We kind of went through a phase where we were just at war and it was all just about numbers and meat grinder stuff, and we then went through the Curse phase where it was all about really getting super sharp and getting 120% out of every single ship that we had, and if it was 120%, it wasn't good enough, and that was when I think we really made a big leap in performance. And I think I can't remember how long we were there for actually, but towards the end of that, there was, I remember for a good year or so, there was just endless content. I can't remember why. There would just be sort of 3-way 100-man fleets fighting for no reason, just an HRW. Just every day there was like, hey, there's 2 100-man fleets, two jumps away, let's just bomb. And like it was just a daily, almost hourly thing. And probably like, I don't know, it felt, looking back, and I'm probably getting the times all mixed up, but looking back on it, it felt like after 1 or 2 years, it just felt like everything dried up. Every entity had become part of the coalition around us. And I remember like we were like reinforcing some shitty technedium, like small moon mining towers in like Great Wildlands. And we couldn't even get a fight out of one of them because whoever the owner was, they'd be like 500 people defending like a small moon mining pot. It was just like, this is ridiculous. So yeah, it was more of a case of necessity rather than desire. But that's sometimes you can't control the factors.
I forgot which one it was. I think the last, or maybe one of the last 3 podcasts or so, I talked about Darkside 2 and our learning experience in G-O, right? Staging in the Citadel, not in a station at the time, with the enemy in the same station. That was a unique experience too. And these guys fucked us up. Like they were a little bit smaller than us, but at the beginning they really taught us some lessons, and we really needed those lessons too, right?
Yeah, we did. I mean, they were. I think of all the groups on the Eve, I think shout out to any Dark Side folks who are listening. I don't know if any are, but I think probably our whole Dark Side is one of just the toughest opponents we've ever faced. Just because they were so well. I mean, they don't typically fly a huge variety of stuff, and they can't, right? They're small. So what they do fly generally is so well drilled that, and they're so well rehearsed at it, and they know exactly how to tease you into making a mistake or doing the wrong thing, or engaging them on their terms, and just making you pay for it. And just for me, that was my big learning experience. And even in between that, just the day-to-day discipline of, I just remember the amount of people who would just die warping to station and just getting insta-blamped by Macariel sitting behind the station. It was just ridiculous. There'd be like 100 deaths a day, maybe even 100 deaths an hour sometimes. People had to learn that stuff, right? They had to learn, like, you got to walk to the insta dark and dark. It was fun times, but also at the same time, I think it was a bit stressful actually, because I think I was on one of my big trips at the time. I think I was away for 3 months, and I was like, hanging on the forums, and I could see lots of, I'd probably say that the non-core folks were just like, there was loads of people who were just like, oh my god, like we're getting our asses kicked. I was like, oh my god, this is a nightmare. But no, when we came back, and we had loads of good fights against them, and they drove me crazy, those guys, and they gave me tons of beatings until I got my act together, and that was a good learning experience for me. I got to hand it to them.
Yeah, you did the fleet stuff pretty. I mean, it didn't take us too long to learn those lessons. We were ready to learn too, right? So yeah, the first month was a struggle, but after that we got a hold of it, and we got onto the same level, and then we started beating them regularly. And I mean, not gonna lie, also because we are like slightly bigger. At the time, we weren't as big as we now, right? We were like, if they field 50 guys, we would be able to field 60, 65, right? That's kind of what we were able to do.
I think numbers at the time were pretty much parity, actually. I mean, probably there were, once we started getting a couple of wins, and people started getting the confidence back, our numbers went up a little bit, and then the more and more that happened, the harder and harder it became for them, right? But they still gave us a bloody nose now and again when we were getting lazy, and people thought, oh, hey, this looks easy, let's just undock and Siege of Dread, and oh my god, like, there we go. But that, back then, things felt different then. Losing felt more expensive. I remember going, those are probably my days of screaming at the fleet all the time, and like, oh my god, like, we've lost 2 drakes.
Stop
like,
fucking dying. Someone put it in chat. Stop fucking dying. One of my best.
You look back at it and go, we lost 5 drakes and 2 tempests. Like, and we'd come home and be like miserable. Like, how did we lose 5 drakes and 2 tempests? Like, we should have lost one ship tops.
Yeah, and you know what? You figured out the bigger fleet stuff quickly, but also shout out to Emilia. I'm not sure if he's watching right now. He sometimes does. One of the best hunters ever we ever had, and then also like my right hand when it came to like crafty things to come up with and how to catch those dark side guys, how to deal with them if they camp the state, like all these lessons we had to learn, these little things, right? And just like it was just a fun time from that perspective for me too, even though I didn't even run bigger fleets at the time, but I did run
good times.
Yeah, I did run the German ninjas, if you remember those.
Yeah, I think I've joined the German ninjas a few times, and it was like, hey, don't worry, you don't need to speak German, just kind of pick it up and listen to what everyone else is doing. And I just watch what everyone else is doing, because like all the instructions will be in German. Like, you could figure it out.
Yeah, and at the time, I think we had an argument about that. Actually, there was like, there's always some idiots in this game, right? Some dudes that just take it too serious, or like they think there's like another motivation behind me running it in German, even though I can speak English, obviously. But at the time, I wasn't as comfortable speaking English. But then also, because that concept is just so fast, sometimes like it's just like I can't just find the right words. You have something to describe what you want, right? And then in English it wouldn't just work for me, right? It would just not work for me. It would just be a bad experience for me, so I didn't do it. And I remember like building up a little bit of a building up the fleet numbers basically, right? And that was the first time I was like, oh yeah, we can get somewhere with this, right? And it was just the Germans in Alliance. So yeah, that's all in this curse times. There was a lot of things that they went in the right direction for us, I think.
Yeah,
And for
and
me
I think people
personally,
take it for granted, right? You've got the pressure of FCing and being successful and trying out this fun stuff, and then doing it in a language which is not your own, and calling crazy commands. I remember, I certainly remember those times. Going, why isn't Panda doing this in English? And you go, well, think about me doing a thing in German. It'd be a disaster.
well,
What, you were gonna say something?
I was just about to say, like, yeah, that's what, my English over those 10 years, my English went like from okay to pretty good, I would say. Like, obviously, I don't care too much about. I know I've got a little bit of an accent, and like I don't find every word in the right moment, but I don't have to care too much. I know, like, I can get my thoughts across and stuff, and I don't have to think about it. And sometimes I catch myself thinking in English. Sometimes I even, like, for example, something like dumb happens, like I would just like curse out in English or so, right? So I'm very like comfortable with English now. So
English is awesome anyway, and it's like people don't even register it these days. They just go, it's just Panda. The same for everybody else, like in the lines. There's so many people who come from different backgrounds, different languages. People understand them. They get through it.
yeah,
And
I
they
just think it. Sorry, I was just about to say, like, I just think it's a nice side effect of FCing and stuff that you like. I get to improve my English too.
Yeah, and also the non-English, right? The random nonsense we make up, and you create new words which people use like for years later, and kind of go, "How did that happen?"
Yeah.
So we're getting close to an hour and a half, but we did have a question, and someone also asked it in chat, so I want to bring it up. They wanted to ask you about post-war Init. So where do you see Init? What direction do you see them going in after the war is over?
Well, I took a couple of months off with real life, and I came back, and I was told we were a dead alliance. So I think
We're dying, not
yeah,
dead
we're
yet.
dead.
But
I think we're in as good a place as we've ever been. I think the alliance has gone through changes over the years, and sometimes it oscillates one way, sometimes it oscillates another way. We always tried to have at least back in the day, we always tried to have a bit of a mantra about Sov and a particular piece of territory is just being temporary and it's just a resource rather than a home per se. I think during the Fountain era, I don't think we lost that necessarily, but that probably became a bit diluted, and maybe people probably bought a bit too much into being in a particular region. Although, having said that, I think looking at just the perception of everybody in Fleet, I think no one really seems to care. I think for us, I'm hugely optimistic, as I always am, because there's nothing anyone can really do to us, save for coming and killing us in real life. That's going to stop the alliance. Or um,
please don't do that.
yeah, don't do that. At least we might have something to say about that. But I think until the main leadership and FC team decides they aren't interested anymore, there's nothing really anyone can do to us materially in the game that's going to stop us from coming after you and killing you. I think it doesn't really matter. I think nowadays, we're in impasse right now, raining fire down on hostiles. It doesn't really matter. I think for us, it's an open chessboard, and we are quite fortunate that we can do lots of different things. We've lived out of the gutter, we lived out of the woods. Doesn't really matter. We find success in lots of things we do. I have zero concerns about the future for us. It's all actually just upside. I think we're in this bizarre phase right now where the content hasn't been particularly great, I think, on either side for a while. And I think if everyone's honest with themselves, they'd probably say that, neither side are engaging in lots of genuine fighting. But, for us, we've just got more enemies and more people to kill. And I think everyone's just looking forward to that, endlessly, forever, over and over, repeat.
Yeah, I think what helps a lot is like our history a little bit, because whenever it was like this, it was a tough time or we lost space or whatever, like maybe the first time I'm sure you were worried, like when we were first in Curse and stuff like this, right? but over time, like whenever that was like a tough time or we lost space or some of that shit, it always followed with like one of the best times. That's always what it was, right? Like so, you know. I
Yeah.
think it's not a leak when we say like, yeah, we haven't decided what we want to do post-war because nobody knows what post-war even looks like, right? What even
Or
does
when it's even gonna
post-war
be.
mean like? Do you mean post-war in Delve? Do you mean post-war overall? Because like test is next, and let's say the war in Delve ends. I think by now everyone has realized goons are not just gonna fucking disband and give up, right? So that war is gonna take longer than people might just think. So like, what is post-war, right? Like this war is not gonna go anywhere for a while.
I don't think there even is necessarily a post-war. I think the conflict is now infinite. I think it's just going to be a case of, we can't lose anything more, right? We've got nothing to worry about. We've got nothing to lose, and no one's upset about that. So we can only just kill stuff at our own pace. If we want to kill less stuff and just take a chill and go to the beach, we can do that. If we want to kill more stuff and stay up all night, we can do that. It doesn't matter. So for us, there's no defeat scenario that I can think of that I'm worried about. And I think
Just
having
a
gone
gap.
through this life cycle a number of times, you kind of realize that actually the majority of folks who've been through this a number of times with you know exactly what it's about. They have no concerns. They're totally on board with it. And you might have some folks who are maybe new to the alliance who haven't got that heritage and gone through that life cycle and maybe a bit more concerned about things, and maybe they want different things. Maybe some people want more stability. Maybe some people do, right? Some people need, for whatever reason, they need some stability here and there, or they want a different play style. But for the core of people, I don't think they have any concerns. And as long as we're creating the content for them, as long as we are doing interesting stuff, as long as we're giving them opportunities, I think nothing can touch us.
Sorry,
It,
I wanted to read a question from one of the best names in the chat, actually. Chicken nuggets.
That's what I was gonna do.
All right, then you read the question. That's fine.
Okay, so Chicken Nugget Scientist, which is Pando's secret alter ego, wants to know like what lessons learned you've had from managing fountain space over the years.
Can I go first? I
Yeah,
think
Panda, you go first.
the number one lesson we learned there is the overextending, right? We did overextend. I think we got a little greedy, and we had space in, I don't even, how many regions were there? 7, 8, 9? I don't even know. Right? We were everywhere at the same time, like 3 stagings. Literally, we had 3 stagings for a lot of time, right? For a long time. So I think we were doing too much. That's my opinion.
Yeah, I think we did. We did overextend for lots of different reasons. Maintaining jump bridges to pure blind when we're living, in Fountain, just as ridiculous. Oh my god, there's a jump bridge being shot. Like, who cares? Like, I didn't even know how many Fortizars we even had in pure blind and Placid. It's like, how many? Like, do we really need that many staging Fortizars? Yeah, but this is really helpful if I want to bridge to this part of trivia. I'm like, fucking hell! Like, when do we do that? But yeah, that's probably one lesson. I don't think Fountain necessarily taught us too many lessons. Really, it was probably one of the things that we had to do a lot more of that we weren't really used to for a while was running a lot of alliance level infrastructure things, and by that I don't just mean iHubs or upgrades, but just that the creation of lots of teams, which probably more established SOV holding alliances are probably more used to, which is we have a team for running market stuff, or we have a team for running production or fuel blocks. Like alliances which are much more into building castles generally have a lot of structure around how, well, they probably should have if they don't, have a lot of structure around lots of different teams doing things. So probably for us, that was a new thing. We weren't really used to operating at scale where we needed to have partition teams with different roles and responsibilities. And historically, we didn't need it because we didn't have it so much. So it wasn't necessary. So that was probably a learning experience of, okay, well, now we need a team to do this. And think, oh, shit, like before that was just, Red Rose used to do all that. Like we had one guy
about to say
infrastructure for like 5 regions. And like, if Red Rose is listening, I hope we didn't burn you out too much.
I was about to say big shout out to Red Rose and Erica and like all the guys that have been fueling stuff and like keeping it running. And I'm sure sometimes for them it felt like we don't even notice like how much work's in there, but we do, right? Like as an FC, like logging in now and now you have to keep track on this shit and all that stuff. Like it's a lot of stuff, right? And our team was always tiny. It was always undermanned, right? Like we never had enough manpower technically. So the guys that did it did more than they could actually, right? And yeah, it sounds a little sad now, but I mean they got it done, and it was like kind of impressive to be honest. If you look back at it.
Yeah.
And I know like for example also like rental management and stuff. I did that for a while. Until like we all decided like no, like you said actually Panda, I don't want you to do that anymore, like they just run fleets, because I remember that one day like I was just mad at some fucking dude. I forgot what it was, some fucking dude. I was like, what am I doing here? Like why am I even talking to this fucking brain fart?
I thought it was like, this guy feels like a spy. And it was like, Panda, we've had like 20 applications for rentals. Like, I've denied them all. They're all being declined. Like, go on. I could smell it. Yeah. But actually, you make a good point. I mean, we've mentioned maybe one or two people, Red Rose, Erica, but there's nowadays there's so many people, whether it's, the FC team, there's this team, the amount of work that people are doing behind the scenes to help out, it's just incredible. And I'm gonna have to I'm not gonna list them all out now because I won't get everyone's names right, but we're gonna have to give some recognition to those folks, because the amount of people which do incredible amounts of things for the Lions, and it doesn't go unnoticed, but we need to recognize it more, I think. Just look at the guys, guys and girls actually who just voluntarily say, I've just gone and created all these ping spots in this particular constellation, and here's a bookmark folder for you. They're doing it just
yeah.
There's a bit of prompting, but they're not doing it on orders. They're just going out there and doing it to be helpful. And there's so much of that nowadays that we have to be grateful for.
I remember being on the rental team for like 2.5 years before it was automated, and I literally had to go into the wallet for them to pay rent and balance off of spreadsheets for every single person that was renting for us every single month to check how much they owed and if they paid and everything. And it took hours every single month. And I sat there and I was like, why am I doing this to myself? Like, this is harder than my actual job. I hate numbers. Like, this is the worst thing for me to fucking do.
And then you finish and you get a ping, hey, who wants to map a wormhole? And then you're like, yeah, whatever, I'll do that too.
No, back then I would finish and then I'd get like a little message from Pando that's like, hey, we need people to rat in Cloud Ring so that we can get wormholes.
Get a wormhole generator going.
Yeah. So go rat in Cloud Ring by yourself for like 4 hours.
Wow. Yeah, but I mean, Miranda, all that stuff. I mean, we don't say it often enough, but without people like yourself and others doing all those things, we just wouldn't be able to do the things we've done, right? You just wouldn't have the means to do it. So, huge shout out and thank you to everyone who's made those contributions. And lots of the time, it's not necessarily glamorous, sexy stuff. It could be some really shit ass boring thing that someone's got to do, and people pitch in and help.
Yeah, and
sorry,
Caleb Ariana says that the spreadsheet skills we learn in EVE can get us high-paid jobs in real life. And legitimately, the spreadsheet skills that I learned during my time as the init accountant for rentals, like, I have used that so many times with, like, the conditional formatting and stuff that I learned how to do in my real job, because I'm a logistician in my real life. So I do a lot of spreadsheets and a lot of like calculations for things. And yeah, it definitely, EVE has helped me in my real life job.
You always got the best looking spreadsheets, no?
I do. I legitimately have the best freaking spreadsheets. And then if I need something, and then, yeah, like on top of that, if there's something that I don't know how to do, I literally just like ping it to the corp or like to Alliance. And I'm like, does anyone know how to do this? And then I'll get like 5 people that are like, here, let me do it for you. And then boom, like best spreadsheet ever. And my bosses are super impressed. And I tell them that I did it all myself and they're super, super impressed. So yeah, that's my spreadsheets.
You know what? We were talking about like people taking on like stuff, and that's usually too much. Like for example, the rental stuff was a little, or not the rental stuff necessarily, but like all the infrastructure and all that stuff. But at the same time, also I think because we are not as organized, that also leaves a couple like holes for people to grow into those roles, if that makes sense. You know what I mean? If we were perfectly organized and we had, like, for example, for the job, like we had 10 dudes already there doing this, like doing the minimal stuff, but then people like, for example, Shvo is a good example, right? He kind of found a little bit of a niche, and he has been doing stuff, and then he grew into even more of a role there, and then suddenly he's doing a lot of stuff. Suddenly he starts FCing. He kept telling me like, oh no, my English is too bad. And, you know, we talked about that earlier. I'm like, dude, your English is fine. You just have to cross this don't give a fuck barrier where, like, if there's one word like completely fucking trash and nobody understands, they still get what you mean, most likely. You talk Eve most of the time. So then, like, he started doing more fleets himself. And he's like, I think he has grown into like quite an FC, even though he never wanted to, right? So I think being a little less organized sometimes works out in our favor, because people find those like holes, right?
Yeah. There's white space. I mean, I never knew we needed like a complete demolition one-man machine and grand heist citadel, you know, assassin. And he's been doing that, right? He's just like, holy shit, how many citadels have you stolen today?
You know what, actually?
Ref 5 Fortizars, and I've stolen 3, and I've stolen the Fortizar as well. I've lost 1 jump rate, but you know.
He actually stole a Fortizar today again, but he got tackled in the last second by some hero condor. He said, like a random condor shot him, tackled his rocker, he couldn't get rid of it, and then the fleet tackled him, and he lost the rocker with the Fortizar inside. But yeah, I think that was probably Fortizar number 27 that he stole. So like,
what do you say? It's the cost of doing business, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
He's such a good guy too.
Yeah, he
such
is
a sweetheart.
And you know what?
Yeah.
He only has so much time because of home office and all that stuff. So I fear the day his boss is gonna be like, yeah, well, like, stop home office, come back to work. And you know, we're gonna lose our Shvo then, which you know.
Yeah. Well, we've got a couple. I think we've probably got 2 more months yet to finish killing everything. That'll probably be okay.
Yeah.
That's probably all we need.
Yeah, make full use of the Shvo. Yeah. All right. I think we're actually pretty much exactly on an hour and a half. Unless someone do you have any like good questions, Miranda, that people brought up or so?
There was no other questions in the chat that I saw, unless anyone can type really fast and wants to type one right now.
In that case, I would say thanks for coming on. Finally, like, technically looking back, you should have been episode 1, right? Because like I said at the beginning, the most, like, what I know about FCing, a lot of it I learned from you. So you should have been episode 1, but finally we got it done. Only took us 60. Which one is it? 66? I think so, right? So only took us 66 episodes, but we had you on finally. You got time.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I would have loved to come on before. You know, life's been quite hectic, and it's been difficult to find the time. You know, I'm hugely privileged to be invited on the show, and you know, Pandy did such an awesome job of FCing, helping lead the alliance, and running together with Miranda and others. You know, creating content, creating experiences for people, creating the show, and creating such a great following. You know, it's a huge privilege to be invited on and to be able to come on and have a chat. So thank you very much, and I hope you continue doing it.
I will. Alrighty. Then, guys, everyone on stream, thanks for hanging out. And I would say see you guys on the next one. Maybe the next one will be Bonga. And then I've got a full set. Then I've got a full set of Inner Thread FCs. But yeah, and whoever is the fastest, you get a free skin. So there you go. And yep, bye.
Bye.
Thanks all.